Welcome to the Grapevine Show. I'm your host, Chris Hughes. To my right, other host, Eric Kaiser. And to the bottom down here, that is Michael Cianfranco. And tonight's going to be a pretty fun night. So we're going to have some conversations that are a little different. We are going to not be focused on HVAC contractors so much, which is kind of where the show is mostly focused for its content. Tonight's going to be more about speaking to homeowners. Speaking to people who have to make purchases on air conditioners, kind of come at this from a different angle. Give some advice to someone who's maybe unknowing about anything of what we do. And so I've made a few slides.
I think there might be some education in here for contractors.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think maybe even some builders, if you're looking to purchase a brand new air conditioner, if you want to get a little educated on that, purchase, tonight's going to be a good night for that.
Yeah.
I'm excited, man.
Me too. This is going to be a fun one.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of learning in here for everybody, anybody that happens to want to watch this.
Yeah. Always learning, baby. Always learning.
Yeah. And to be shared, right? The idea behind this show is, it continues to live on. We make content that way. If there's always a struggle in the field, there's an avenue for people to, point back to say, hey, here's a show based on that topic. Go watch it. That's where the education's coming from. That's the idea. So here we go.
Don't be selfish.
Let me back up. Let me back up and ask a question here, Chris. Where did this idea come from?
This came from Michael Cianfranco earlier today. It's amazing at where our shows spin out of. Usually, to kind of let you know, we're not that organized.
We are not that prepared.
Not at all. So typically what happens is, like most HVAC shows that I watch, a thumbnail comes out like 7 days before. It gets heavily marketed. They do a very good job. They get a lot of attention. Not us.
Not us. This is not who we are.
We throw a thumbnail down the day of the show.
Yeah.
And then we go, we should probably share this sometime.
Sometimes you will throw a thumbnail down like Thursday or Friday, but
yeah,
I got to give it to you.
Here's what I'll tell you, man.
That's a really prepared week.
Usually that's when we have a guest. I try to give that guest a little bit more of attention.
Yeah.
A chance to market.
Eric just got back from Walmart. His computer just broke down.
Yeah.
I got back from hitting the reset button on the back of that thing.
Yeah.
Dude, when you texted, what did you just text?
I haven't restarted it in like a month. So,
oh my God.
So if you ever wonder why I'm always got a little sweat right here before every show starts, that's because usually one of these people have not made it and we're 30 seconds out.
Dude, the last thing he said 10 minutes before we go live, Eric goes, "This could be bad."
Yeah. Could be bad. Yeah. The man who's built half the slide deck tonight. So normally we don't build slide decks for this 1 hour special, but tonight we did.
You got one, I got one. I mean, we're talking.
I know. We didn't even coordinate. This is how bad we are. Like 20 minutes before the show, I was like, guys, I built some slides for tonight because I'm thinking I want to spice it up. And Eric's like, no way, me too.
It's awesome. And I'm wearing slides tonight.
Yeah.
Like an old.
There we go. It's like 2 presentations in the same hour. It's going to be good stuff.
We should be charging for this content. I don't know.
Should we? Maybe we are. We're charging subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed,
Jenny Garcia in the chat tonight.
Throw a thumbs up too.
Dave Johnson, Ola, Tom Leck.
I gotta get the chat on.
The overtime. C Young HVAC. I haven't seen them in here before. Welcome.
All right, let's get into it.
So,
for everyone listening, including the homeowners out there, 500 square foot per ton has been in the industry for as long as I've been in the industry, which has been about 20 years.
Let's back up and define some stuff here. All right.
Hold on, wait a minute.
Let's make some definitions going on, because not everybody's going to understand what is a 500 square foot per ton and why is that bad or good or anything else.
I got slides on that.
All right, cool.
So how about I start this bad boy up with a few slides?
Well,
as an introduction.
Okay, so yeah, let's have some introduction here.
Can we explain to homeowners what a 500 square foot rule is, or you got it in the slide?
Look at that slide.
Beginning slide right here. What we need to know: for every 12,000 BTUs of cooling, that equals 1 ton of air conditioning.
Ish.
So ish, right? I didn't want to take it there, right? Because we're talking to people who are HVAC contractors and people who are not HVAC contractors, right? So we got to do this. How does that HVAC company say? We got to do this gently. you know what I'm talking about? I can't remember what they said, but it was fun. All right. So for the homeowners out there, right? The way us HVAC people look at your air conditioner, this is how we look at it. If you have a 1 ton air conditioner, we think 12,000 BTUs. What Eric was getting at a minute ago is it may not be 12,000 BTUs. The performance data of that air conditioner, performance data meaning the literature that comes with the equipment that actually gives us the finite details about that piece of equipment, might tell us that under specific test conditions, it only puts out 11,752 BTUs, right? So that's what we need to be paying attention to. The 1 ton per AC, or 1 ton that could jump to a 2 ton, 3 ton, that's a way of normalizing it. You're going to hear that a lot in air conditioning in different aspects of it. One is normalizing the tonnage. And I get it. It made things easier for sales, but it got adopted as almost like law. And that was kind of a mistake. So we're going to do a few practices real quick. You ready?
It's rule of thumb, no more thumbs, guys. We're not allowed to have any thumb. No more rule.
12,000 BTUs equals a 1 ton AC. And then if you add 2 of those up, 12 and 12, you get 24. So you get a 2 ton air conditioner in your house. If you add 3 of those up, you get a 3 ton air conditioner in your house. Now here's a doozy. They do come in split sizes. Right. So if you get a 12, a 12, a 12 plus 6, then you could have a 3.5 ton air conditioner in your house. Right. They don't go in less than like half ton increments, though. Typically, you'll see 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4. And then I haven't seen many 4.5s. I can't even think I've ever seen one.
4.5, 4 to 5.
And then Jenry Garcia's favorite size,
the 5 ton,
the
4
infamous
to 5. And look, I messed up on my slide. See, because I built this last minute. That should have been 60.
60,000.
Let's go look at that slide.
Let's talk about this real quick, because this is important, an important part of this. And Chris, go with your slides, because you got a flow here going on. My head's going somewhere else.
Okay.
And it's probably jumping way ahead of you as usual.
Okay.
That's what I do.
Well, I'm just, that was.
He's going off on a Kaiser roll.
So let me see if I want to see if I can.
Is that a thing now? A Kaiser roll?
Look at that.
Yeah. Short. Make your window shorter.
Shorter.
I am that.
Yeah. Like we just went to the IMAX theater.
Yeah.
Things got better.
I got my 3D glasses on.
Took my wife on a date and went to the super theater and not the crappy one.
What was it with Southern people and they call it theater? I don't get it.
What's wrong with that?
You Southern people in the theater. I was like,
hey, who you calling Southern people?
I was going to say you're more Southern than the both of us.
Unreal. Yeah. I'm a Southern Yankee.
Yeah. We don't know what you are, Michael.
Yeah, either do I.
Yeah.
I'm an AC guy that thinks I do home performance, a home performance guy that dabbles in HVAC.
All right. So now we have a basic understanding of an air conditioner, right? Like there's a tonnage. The tonnage gets applied to a house. Now here's where things start to get a little sour. right? So what I have decided to do was go into my load calculation program before the show and fast as I could sketch out the most basic home that we found in my area from about 1975 to maybe 1982.
Nice.
That arena, right?
Can I put a pause on this real quick? Because I think what
Yes.
I've got might just fit in really well right here.
Perfect. Bring it in, man.
All right.
I honestly, I miss the bathrooms and stuff in this load, but for those watching who don't know much about this, that doesn't matter. Like,
Okay,
if
so
I didn't draw a bathroom into the house, that's okay.
We're
So don't
going to
freak
get,
out.
so I just want to take this back for people to kind of understand why this is important to pay attention to and that. So let me bring this up here. All right.
Bring it.
So
Oh, we just went to Eric's slide.
yeah, we're just going to switch slides here. Okay. So we're going to switch slides. So let's understand this a little bit and kind of understand what a load calculation does.
Yeah.
And the 500 square foot rule of thumb has been widely used in the industry for years to size air conditioners because people, I don't know if they don't want to do load calculations. I don't know if they don't understand why they need to do them. I don't understand 100% where that came from. What do you think? Where did that come from originally?
I think it came from commonplace. Here's where I hate to give out the secret sauce of the show, man, but you're dragging me right down the rabbit hole and I'm going to just have to release it. I think I know exactly where it came from. I've got the load to kind of prove it to myself tonight.
Mm-hmm.
It came from traditional building practices that didn't change for many years in a row. And they weren't, our building materials were not up to speed like they are now. And everything became very basic.
Real similar, right?
From my area, if you go drive around in an old part of town and you look at the houses, they all look very, very similar.
Right.
Like if you go to my grandmother's house and you go look at it, that she's never moved away from, she's passed away now, but like that house and every other house down the block, there ain't much difference.
Yeah.
There's no difference in the windows. There's a difference in the color of the brick. Hell, the roof is about the same, which means the ceiling insulation is probably the same. The wall insulation is probably the same. Everything's the same.
Dude, you're right. And I've seen houses down in South Florida here that are older in the 60s. They remind me of some of the houses up in New York.
Yeah.
So
So
here's
like the building architecture is similar.
So here's what happens. You do a load calculation on a house. Let's say there's an engineer running do I need a pause?
Let's pause on that thought. I want to hold that thought for a minute. I want to go really basic here. All right. So the box up here on the screen, the blue box just represents a house. Okay. It's got 4 walls, a ceiling, and a floor. Now, when we calculate a load calculation, and what the load calculation is on a house is calculating how much heat is going to be gained or lost at what's called peak conditions in your geographical area.
It needed to be said. You're right.
All right. So we need to understand what a load calculation is, I think, first, especially when we're talking to people that aren't in the industry here. And I hate to say it, but even some people in the industry I've run across don't fully understand what a load calculation is.
No shame. Lay it out there.
I mean, I didn't understand it for a lot of years. I had to learn it. So
guilty.
Look, we all have to learn this. We all have to learn this sometime. So let's everybody keep learning here together. All right. And what we do, we have air temperature outside. We have atmospheric conditions outside that cause heat to transfer either into or out of the house.
Depending on the season, right?
Depending on the season, the time of day, time of year, whatever that may be.
We should get into the types of heat transfer.
Right. Let's not get too deep on that.
No,
not right now. Not right now.
High level.
Right. So not right now. Basically, we're transferring heat either into the house or out of the house. And we use mechanical equipment, whether it be an air conditioner in when it's hotter outside, to remove that heat from the house. So this is a very key thing that I think I misunderstood until I got into HVAC and really started digging into the equipment. The outdoor environment causes heat to transfer into the house. We'll say in the summertime when it's hotter outside than we want it inside. And then we use that mechanical equipment to remove that heat from the house. So we're removing heat. And in the wintertime, vice versa, we may use a heat pump or we may use a gas furnace to add heat back into the house that is lost to the external environment. So we're transferring heat. All right. The house transfers heat and we're using mechanical equipment to make up the amount of heat that's transferred. Now, the same amount of heat is not always transferred all the time, depending on the outdoor conditions, maybe the wind, the sun, whatever else. But the load calculation is designed to figure out what the peak transfer is. And the load calculation looks at all the surfaces on the external of the house. So that's really what I want to start with right here. When they talk about 500 square foot per ton, when somebody says that, they're talking about floor area of the house. And that's just measured out floor area of the house, square footage of the structure as it sits on the ground, or
conditioned floor area.
correct.
Conditioned floor area of the house.
Yep.
Thank you. Very, very good distinction. Conditioned floor area of the house. So let's go a little bit farther then in this to the next step here.
Slide
We're
it
going
on
to take
down.
a box, right?
A blue box.
A blue box. That blue box is 10 foot wide by 50 foot long with 8-foot ceilings in it. Okay, that's 500 square
My
foot.
great grandmother's house.
Yeah.
A lot of houses built like that, especially in cities. I mean, they were long and narrow.
We
and they
call
set
that a shotgun style.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Yep.
Shotgun house.
Shotgun house, or row houses sometimes. But yeah. All right. And a lot of them were single story. People lived in them for a lot of years, right? So 500 square foot of floor area. Now, remember, there's more to that house than the floor area. It's three-dimensional. It has a roof. It has walls. So we have 500 square foot of ceiling area. We have 960 square foot of wall area. All right. That totals up to 1,960 square foot of total external surface area.
Surface area.
Okay. Surface area between conditioned and unconditioned space. Now, not all of those surface areas are created equal. Sometimes if there's sun shining on a surface area, it's going to gain more heat. This is why in a load calculation, the direction of the front door or how the house faces is important.
Very important. Yeah.
It can make a difference. The insulation types, the roof color, all this stuff is very important to figure out the actual BTU loss and gain of a structure, right? But what I want to show here is this. 1,960 square foot of total surface area per ton of AC if that 500 square foot per ton rule is followed. Okay. So there's that shotgun style house, right, Chris?
4 ton. Right
4
there.
ton, 4 ton right there. But no,
It's
like. Only a ton because it's 500 square foot of floor area, because that's the 500 square foot per ton rule is all about floor area. It's not about the surface area of the house. So if we applied this to other houses and we used, say, a ton per 1,960 square foot of surface area, or 2,000, just to not make a nice round number of total surface area, things start to change. Let's look at a different house. All right. This house is 8-foot ceilings, 50 foot long, but now it's 40 foot wide. So we have 2,000 square foot of floor area, right? Touching unconditioned space.
Is that 4 shotguns?
That's 4 shotguns.
Yeah.
All hooked together, right? Now but we also have 2,000 square foot of ceiling area. All right. But only 1,440 square foot of wall area.
Oh, did you look at that?
So our wall area to, now our ceiling and our floor area are a lot larger than our wall area. Whereas that first house, it was the other way around.
I never thought about that.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought this up.
But this gives us 5,500, we'll say roughly square foot total external surface area. But if we follow that 500 square foot per ton rule, we're going to put a 4 ton in that, and we're going to end up with 1,360 square foot of total surface area per ton of AC. So that's a lot different than
it's a
that
lot different.
shotgun
A lot more.
house. Now, let's take a look at a 2-story house, because this was, I came up with this today when you guys shouted this out, and I was like, I've got a way I want to show this. Okay. So
I think you got to explain the 1 foot separator between the 8 and 8.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm loving this, by the way.
Okay.
Mhm.
So this
Keep
house,
on going, you
we have
Kaiser roll.
1,000 square foot of floor area in contact with unconditioned space, but because it's 2-story, right, we have 2,000 square foot of usable area or conditioned space. 8-foot ceilings on both stories, but because we have to have structural support, it actually adds an extra 1 foot consideration to the external walls. So there's a total of 17 feet of external wall surface area in this place.
So this gets an 8-ton.
20
Well, I
tons.
mean, would it? Because it's 2,000 square foot. This should have the same 4-ton because it's 2,000 square foot.
4-ton.
No,
Keep
just
going,
a
Eric.
just
Keep
a
going.
4-ton because it's 25 by 20. All right. Now, again, keep in mind, this is a 2,000 square foot 2-story house, 1,000 square foot of ceiling area touching unconditioned space, 1,530 square foot of wall area, right? Or a total of 3,530 square foot of total external surface area, which brings us down to this last metric that I've pulled out of the other two, 882.5 square foot of surface area, external surface area per ton of AC. Right? So let's recap. Okay.
Yeah.
Surface area touching unconditioned space. That 500 square foot single story shotgun house, right? 1,960 square foot per ton. Following the 500 square foot per ton rule. 2,000 square foot single story house, right? 5,440 foot of total external surface area and 1,360 square foot per ton versus a 2,000 square foot 2-story of 3,530 square foot total external surface area, right? And it's down to 882 square foot per ton of external surface area. Now, a lot of newer houses, because the other part of this that we haven't dug into yet, and I think Chris is going to dig into that, is construction style. So, Chris, this is what I got, and I'm gonna flip it back over to you here. All right. So
Okay.
there you go.
All right. So I think Eric's point is, if you're looking at that 1 ton and you're looking at all that surface area, 1 ton could do, the way I kind of interpret that spill was, how do we know what 1 ton of air conditioning is capable of for total floor area or surface area, however you want to look at it? Like, how do you know? Because
I think we have to flip that around. And how do we know what the house needs?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. How do we? So what you're saying is, and I'm gonna just try to add to that, is you can't go by square footage,
right?
You can't go by surface area. You can't go by the physical size of a structure and say, well, it needs this size air conditioner, because that's just not how it works.
Well, you kind of you can't go by the square footage of the structure, just the livable square footage or conditioned square footage area. You actually have to go by the total size of the structure, but then you have to dig in to know the construction types. What kind of insulation is in it? How is it built? What materials are being used? What direction does it face? What kind of windows and all, you're going to go down that road.
All right. Here we go. Down that road we go. So carrying on to Eric's box conversation.
Like I said, I wanted to bring that down to a really just basic level so we can build on that.
Right. Get the foundation working.
And if there's any questions, just put them in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Throw them up there.
Yep. So I'm going back to my slide deck where I drew a typical house. And just for anybody who doesn't know, this is a load calculation program. This is one of many out there.
I want to answer this question real quick. So Young HVAC, volume versus square foot of actual. So it really depends on the surface area or the square footage surface area touching unconditioned space and how that is affected by the external environment. Is it touching ground? Is it touching air? Is it going to have sun shining on it? Is it shaded? You know,
is it the garage? Is there a porch on the back foot?
So y'all can see my cursor on that screen, right? Okay,
yeah,
so
absolutely.
Let's just have a quick chat before I keep going. This is the exterior wall right here. And let's just say in Louisiana, peak load is 94 degrees. Well, then that means the air and temperature that's hitting this wall at some point when the sun's shining on it's 94 degrees on this side. And on the other side, it's say 75 degrees, right? So you have that differential. Then where my cursor is now, you have the attic. Let's say it's a vented attic. Now the heat in the attic definitely gets to around 130 degrees, no sweat, like in the attic of Louisiana. So you have 130 degrees with 75 degrees below. That means that the top or the ceiling of this structure is getting way more impacted by the conditions from the sun than the wall, right? So there's more load against the ceiling than there is the wall. And that's going to change as the sun moves around the structure. Same thing with the windows, same things with the doors, same things with the ducts that are ran in that attic space.
Right.
This duct is ran in a hot vented attic. It is against the abuse, right?
Right. So, and heat flows, the higher the difference between two temperature points, the faster heat is going to flow.
Right.
Because heat flows downhill from high to low.
And then if this was a 2-story house with the same square footage, right? You just double it up. Then you'd have half the attic. I mean, you got, the first floor doesn't have a hot attic on it for square footage.
So think about this. I'm just going to throw a little fun tidbit out there. You have to ask yourself, if we put, say, R36 in a ceiling because the heat load is so high, right? You have so much delta between the vented attic and the living space, and that's like R36. Why would we run duct in the vented attic space with a code minimum of R6? Just think about that. Your walls have at least probably R13, right? Your wall has an R13, but we're running ductwork that's got cold air in it with R6. That's code minimum.
And that cold air then is an even higher differential between the two. So it speeds up heat transfer. Now, you do have the velocity factor in there, but that's getting way off in the weeds.
Yeah, super in the weeds. In a nutshell, codes need to change, and we just haven't accomplished that yet in the trade. That's just trade talk right there. But
6 is ridiculous. But yeah, I agree.
Yep. All right, so we have this house that I sketched up pretty quickly. Now, this is a very uniform house in my part of Louisiana. 1,600 square foot rancher house on slab, basic windows, right? So we'll cover that in a minute. But what I want to show next is, let me click that screen. There we go. All right, so in a load calculation program, now this doesn't all happen on one page. This is something I kind of put together, but the numbers on the left, that's the manual J. So that's the load calculation. Some people say load calculation and they mean manual J, S, D, the full workup. And just to clarify, manual J, load calculation, the amount of heat that's coming in or leaving the structure for summer and winter. Manual J.
Yeah,
that's what we're looking at. That's kind of where I'm stopping because we're trying to keep this basic.
If you as a homeowner have a contractor saying they're going to do a manual J on it, they need to be gathering a lot of information off of that house or off the plans for the house. But there's more steps, more manuals for.
We're gonna talk about that.
A series of things that happen after manual J.
Yep.
So what I did was,
and if it's commercial, it's manual what? N?
Well, we're not worried about commercial. We're not talking commercial.
We're gonna have to keep reeling each other back, man. All right, so what you're seeing on the screen here is let me move my mouse around. Let me do something on my screen so I can talking chair. So what are we looking at here? So notice it says winter delta temp, right? So like that's my design delta, 39 degrees less from 70. And then summer delta temp, 18 degrees. So meaning above 75 degrees. That's the way, that's the way this program does it. So what I have here is the broken down loads that's coming into the building, like window load, wall load, ceiling load, door load. Everything I drew into that structure basically gets, a number applied to it, how the sun or nighttime sky affects the winter or summer peak load condition. Okay, so that house you just saw that was about 1,600 square foot, I modeled it under what I would consider the conditions that the house was built way back in the day. What do I mean by that? Single pane clear windows, right? What does that mean? Look at this pie chart. Now, notice this button here says pie charts. This is the summer pie chart. This is the winter pie chart. And all this pie chart is just a pie form of all these numbers, right? We learned that in grade school.
Breaks it down into percentages of the total.
Right. Now look at that window load. I put a star there to kind of like accentuate like how much load the windows are on that house. They're a lot of load, right? So don't always let the percentages fool you, but it's a good, like for us people who can do the designs, the pie chart is a great point of reference to see if we messed up somewhere when designing. Yep. So we'll constantly like reflect back to the pie chart to say, is there something that's just not adding up? Meaning, if I designed a house today and then I pulled up a pie chart and my windows looked like this and this house wasn't a glass house, I messed up somewhere. And then I would be going back to my load calculation trying to figure out what I didn't do right or what I did not input right in that green 3D house model that you seen earlier. But I didn't make a mistake. This house is just old, right? It's got building practices from when everybody had the same windows. You went down to, Pete's hardware store and said, hey, I'm building a house. I need these windows. And he's like, all right, how many of those windows do you want? And I'm like, well, I got 12 windows. So give me 12 of those things, right? And you put them around the house. They all look the same. And they were single pane. And they were, they let a lot of heat come into the house. So a lot of heat load, right? A lot of heat load affecting the house. Look at that summer sizing load. And that window makes up a good 1/3 of the load on the house. That's a lot. So things to pay attention to. There's our duct load, right? Our ducts are running in the vented attic space, right?
Nice.
So
and
there's some load there. We got some infiltration. What does that mean? That's the leakage, right? A house isn't built like a bubble. It's not super tight. So there's infiltration from that. There's only 2 doors on this house, right? So that's why you only see a sliver of heat load coming in from the doors. And the walls, making up about 10% or so of the load of the house. Notice our ceiling. Remember I talked about that delta, right? We got a high delta from the ceiling to the house, right? So 17%.
Delta is a differential in temperature. That's an industry term we use for differential of temperature between 2 points.
So
not a college.
I'm going to back up and go back to where I put the red boxes around the totals. And what I'm trying to address here is, where did 500 square feet per ton come from? Well, right here, let's remember 2 things. We've got the rule of thumb, 500 square foot per ton that we're talking about. 2, earlier we learned that 12,000 BTUs equals 1 ton of air conditioning, right? So when I see this number for the total heating load of 34,800, well, I can't buy, well, I probably could buy 34,000 if I want to, but let's just, I'm getting too nerdy. Let's just round that to the nearest, right? Because we don't want to be under, we want to be over, barely over. There's a rule for that too. But let's just say that easily rounds up to a 36,000 BTU air conditioner or furnace, because I'm in the winter section, sorry. So 36,000 BTUs needed for the winter. And then I'm at 33 over here. Let's just round that up to 36 so we have enough capacity. So basically a 3-ton air conditioner and a 3-ton heater would be a pretty good fit for this, what I'm going to call house not up to code. And where do I think 500 square foot per ton came from? I think it came from right there. I think it came from 1970 something, when building practices were as lean as could be. It was like, hey, we make a product, use the product. You know, the standards weren't really all there. People didn't keep their air conditioners running all the time. They might turn it off when they leave, turn it on when they sleep. You know, that world. I think that's where.
So
it
what did
came
you
from.
get on this load? That's what you got per square foot?
So
Well,
yeah,
that's your total load. So I mean, per square foot, it's 1,600 square foot, right? So
This one's 16.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
So we would do 1,600 divided by 3, which puts us at about 533 square feet per ton. Pretty close to 500.
Yeah.
She's right on the money, baby.
Right on the money, right? So
Woo!
that is where I think we derived to this rule of thumb. And why did it continue? Because let's think about it. From the 70s to the 80s, not until we probably got really deep into the 90s did building materials start to get radical changes.
Yeah.
Right? Like imagine when spray foam came out in, I would say maybe the 2000s, that really shook up the market.
Yeah.
Big time, especially in my area. Like that was a huge game changer.
And verbally, things get passed down from generation to generation because, you know, when your 6-year-old goes to school, who's saying nah, poo poo? You know, like there's nobody's teaching that. There's no adults teaching that. The kids are learning that.
So,
you know what I'm saying? Like stuff
this
gets passed down. It's amazing.
This is a generational problem. So here's what's going on. And I'm a victim of this. Okay. My dad honestly kind of had a great understanding of what a load calculation was, but didn't get into the practice of doing it. He was mostly commercial guy. Thank God. That probably saved him from messing up a bunch of houses. But he lived in the world where there was probably an engineer who designed houses, let's just say in the, you know, about the time air conditioners came out. And, and then he learns from that guy. And then you start to get into where he's putting this tonnage and then you start this idea of, well, if this room's this many square feet, it probably gets an 8-inch duct. And if this room gets this much square feet, it's probably, they got used to seeing the exact same thing.
Yep.
And then the next generation comes along. And we are very prideful as technicians to not say, well, I don't know, you know, and we should go research. It's like, no, you want to feel like you always have the answer. I've been there. And you say, well, this room gets an 8-inch duct. It's this much square foot. And you explain this crazy, logical, halfway common sense theory to where it makes sense to you that, oh yeah, like we've done a couple houses this way. We had no problems. This many square foot gets this size duct. It's working out.
Been doing this for 30 years like this.
And when it's not breaking for you, you stick with it. You keep going with it.
And people back in the day, they don't complain.
And I think that's where
they're lucky that they have AC, right? In the 70s. Right. So
yep. And I think that's where it all stemmed from. So now what happens now? I'm going to say it like this. Now let's talk about the state of the industry, because building practices or building materials and building practices have changed a lot, right? So here's a house that's up to code. Okay.
Same footprint.
Same
footprint,
blue box.
Same
exactly green box. You name it. I didn't change anything.
And that's a really nice 3D design you got there, Chris. I mean, what kind of software is that?
Oh, So I used Quick Model 3D Design for this scenario. Okay. So same house up to code. So
basically, let me back up here real quick. What you did is you changed the windows.
I changed the windows to
the insulation.
Yeah, and I'm getting to this.
Okay.
So I made some changes, right? And I'm gonna go over those changes, but let's talk about what those changes have reflected. Look at my total heating load now. I'm at 24,188 BTUs, and my cooling load is only 18,795 BTUs. So, you know I'm gonna catch a lot of grief for saying this from the text in here, but let's just say this is a 2-ton load, right? We could round down to 1.5 tons. We could go up to a 2-ton, but let's just keeping it really basic.
Yeah.
With just changing
34,000, right?
With just changing some of the building materials to modern day building materials, and we're not talking spray foam. We're talking pretty basic right? Taking walls from like R11 to R13, taking the ceiling from like R19 to R30, right? Like basic stuff.
Nothing big. Yeah.
Nothing crazy.
Yeah.
And we have basically slashed more than a ton of air conditioning out of this 3-ton house, right? And you can see it reflected in the pie charts, right? Look at our window load now, right? In the summer, right? It doesn't make up a whole third of the pie. That's only making up its,
Yeah.
normal fractional percentage.
It looks more even now.
It looks more even. And, that's something else that's fun to talk about, but it's a little too nerdy. Like, depending on the house I design, I'll look at the pie chart sometimes, and when it looks even, I know I'm probably in the ballpark, but that's kind of like something you get used to seeing. But anyway, that doesn't always play out that way.
Right.
It depends on the house.
That's load calc talk.
Load calc talk. But anyway, house up to code, right? Our pie chart's starting to look a little bit normal. Our tonnage went way down, right? Things are looking good. What did I change? So here's my edits, right? So down here we have the same house, a 500 square foot per ton house, and an 800 square foot per ton house.
Look at that. Dude,
What did I change?
Breakdown, bro.
I broke it down. I changed
That's
ceiling
sweet.
insulation. I changed the windows. I changed the wall insulation. I changed the duct insulation, but not by much. And I changed the infiltration, and not even by that much. We're talking,
Dude, that's not even.
Hold up. Let's back up. Let's define infiltration right here, because this may be a term that a lot of people don't understand, especially if we're focusing this on homeowners. Let's talk about infiltration. So,
all right.
Homeowner facing content.
You're the man on this one.
Okay. So remember how we talked about about 12,000 BTUs equals 1 ton. And so we normalize that talk to make it easier to sell and understand. Not much is different with that when we start talking about ACH 50, right? So for us in the industry, ACH 50 is a way to normalize
All right, hold
building
on.
leakage.
Let's define infiltration. What is infiltration?
Infiltration is building leakage.
Air leakage.
Air
between
leakage.
Indoors, between unconditioned space and conditioned space.
Right. Your door seals. Like if your door seal is not sealing really good, it's going to leak. It's probably going to leak some regardless, right? It's not going to be super perfect tight.
Yeah. And door seals, and window seals, just in my experience, just because they are a rather small portion of the house, area wise, there's a lot more leakage elsewhere in your house.
Yes.
Your doors and windows may leak a little bit, and they're going to have to leak a little bit because you need them to operate. You need them to open.
Right. And here's a fun tidbit for people out there. There's tiny cracks everywhere. A house is literally death by 1,000 cuts. And what do I mean by that? If you don't live in a foamed house and it gets really cold outside, go put your hand near the corner of the exterior house where your baseboard and your corner round is, and tell me if it doesn't feel cold right there.
Well, even in a foamed house, if the framing wasn't done properly, it's still going to be cold there.
True. Yeah.
That's a good point.
I mean, this is the reality of insulation, because I hear a lot of people talk about foam houses like they're the holy grail and they don't leak or they don't lose heat. And
if they're done right, they're amazing.
You're right. If they're done right, but therein lies the key. Right. You need to make sure and test after it's done, because we get that ACH 50 number, that infiltration number, which is called air changes per hour, right? Which is
from what kind of equipment at TrueTech Tools? What type of equipment does that ACH 50?
My marketing guy down here.
Yeah, we got marketing. Marketing's in the house for sure.
They call it.
So it's called a lot of people call it a blower door test, but it's better termed as a house leakage test.
And if you go to Wikipedia, I think we made some edits to that a couple shows back.
The home air leakage test.
Yeah. Building leakage test.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So here's my takeaway.
Any Jamo could change Wikipedia. Oh, I'm sorry. What was your takeaway?
Is if our code minimum, and this is like Louisiana code minimum, okay, not around the country, because this changes. These numbers change as you float around the country. Different jurisdictions have different rules, different adoptions of the codes, right? So I'm just going off what we do here. This gets probably way better as you get away from here.
What do you got in Louisiana?
For infiltration?
The max home air leakage.
So we just voted on that.
Oh,
And
cool.
it was supposed to go to 6, which is random as hell, right? Because
Okay.
it was supposed to be 5. We were going to update to 5. They negotiated to 6.
Ooh,
And then I heard
negotiation.
there was some backdoor conversation and it got pushed back to 7.
Oh,
so, so anyway,
the building mob got in there.
That's and for the record, that's pretty
7.
leaky. That's pretty.
That
darn
is
leaky.
7
pretty
is
leaky.
very leaky of a
That's
house.
where I'm at in Florida. 7.
Yep. So here's what I'm saying. If you're building a new house or you own a house, as a quick way to kind of judge, like think about the house you live in. Think about the stuff we just showed. Ask yourself, do I have single pane windows or do I have double pane windows? Do I have, what kind of windows do I have? And then if you're being quoted an air conditioner that's below 500 square foot per ton, because we see that a lot. Let's say it's 400, 450 square foot per ton. You need to ask yourself, am I getting the right size air conditioner quoted for my house?
Right.
Because there's a good chance you're probably not.
You're right. Is that online square footage calculator that my AC company is pushing? Are they giving me the right quote? Probably not.
So what happens then? What happens if I put an oversized air conditioner in my house?
That's a good statement to bring up right now, Mr. Eric Kaiser.
Yeah, we can make bread, Kaiser.
Yeah, so
we can make lots of bread.
So now it's time just to take it to where we'll
Moldy
try to
bread.
make this as layman as possible, right?
Let's do it.
Because there's this myth that's going on right now that with the newer type of air conditioner equipment, and man, I don't have slides for this. I wish I did. We should have met like a day before this this whole show.
Let's
hold on.
We could do number 2. We could do number 2.
Let's back up and break this down a little more simply.
Okay.
Let's start with where we're at and what the normal load calculation size is for and standard sizing and equipment. Let's start there.
Hold on. Can I say one more thing? Do you have more slides?
I do
out
not.
of slides?
I'm out of slides. You want me to make more slides? I can make more slides.
All right. I'm out of slides. But let's go.
Well, hold on now. Go back to your last slide. For the love of God.
Okay.
Because it was big. It was big. Slide me up.
Uh-oh. Hang on. I got to do some work.
Okay. So where we go from here, right? The load calculation tells us what the house needs. And then we have to do another calculation and this is techie speak here of figuring out what equipment meets the needs of that house. So if we put in too big of an equipment, an oversized piece of equipment, standard equipment is what we call single stage. It's like a light bulb. It's either on or off. And
That's a good analogy.
And the thermostat on your wall is that light switch. It is a temperature activated light switch.
Yeah,
and not a dimmer switch. We're talking,
just a straight up on off light switch.
That is, the basics of equipment.
If you have if you're going single stage basic equipment, what happens is when it's warm out, if the equipment is oversized, in order to meet the demand of the house, say we have a 24,000 or a 2-ton load on the house, but somebody puts in a 3-ton. If we have that 3-ton of capacity being utilized in the unit, and there's a lot more that goes on there that we're not going to get into here, but if that unit is actually removing 3 tons or 36,000 BTUs, but the house is only gaining 24,000, that air conditioner is only going to run about 2/3 of the time. So if you average that over an hour, it's only going to run 40 minutes out of a 60-minute hour. Now, that means that when it's turned off, you're still gaining heat in the house, and the house is going to start to feel warmer. It's going to be uncomfortable when that air conditioner is off. Even though it's not using any electricity, it's actually going to cost you more to turn that off and on than it would if somebody had put in a 24,000 and met the load of the house.
Because you're at cruise control versus
Right.
just stopping and starting.
Kind of like driving a car down the highway versus driving it from stoplight to stoplight or stop sign to stop sign through a city. It's just bombing along and working just fine. But if you stop and start, so it may be on for 10 minutes and off for 5, on for 10, off for 5. And that would be that 2/3 runtime, right? And if it does that 4 times per hour, you're going to be uncomfortable because your temperature swings are going up and down and up and down and up and down in the house because it's really hot outside, and that heat transfers in faster when it's really hot outside.
Yep.
The other side of this is that a lot of people rely on air conditioners for humidity removal in the house. Now, this doesn't happen everywhere in the country. There's a lot of the country that doesn't have to worry about humidity removal. It's not a big deal. But there are significant amount of people that live in climates where we have to take humidity out. And anytime that air conditioner is not running, it can't remove humidity because it has to be running. The thing is, the primary purpose of an air conditioner is to cool the air, not dehumidify it.
It's almost just like a byproduct.
Yeah, it's a complete byproduct of having an air conditioner. But if you oversize that, and then it's only running 40% of the 2/3 of the time,
right,
when it should be running 100% of the time, then you're not getting the dehumidification
right
that you should be out of that unit.
From what I've seen with 500 square foot per ton, these units are only running around 15 minutes during the summer. And normally what I see when a drain line starts to have a byproduct of humidity, the drain line outside starts to run. It's around 10 minutes to 15 minutes. So you possibly could have an air conditioner in your house right now that doesn't even do a lick of humidity control during the hottest time of the day.
But it's going to drop that, what we call sensible temperature. It's going to drop that temperature on the thermostat, not remove the humidity well in the house, which means you end up with what's called a mushroom farm.
Yeah.
Right. And you start growing things in your house because the humidity is stacking up in that house, but the air conditioner is removing the heat, the sensible temperature.
And your same 500 square foot per ton guy is going to say, man, you need a UV light in there.
Well, let's not go down that road.
All right, yeah, I'm going down a rabbit hole.
Okay.
But
you're going down deep rabbit holes. But
I mean, seriously, going back to Chris's slide, I gotta say this, man. So you can have a contractor that is doing 500 square foot per ton, or you get somebody that actually does a load calc, can get 800 square foot per ton. So you don't know what you're getting until you do a load calc.
Well, and these two are just examples on the screen.
Just examples.
This is not a hard and fast. We know people out there right now, I've done it, sizing upwards of 1,500 to 2,000 square foot per ton.
Yep.
And they're having great success with it.
So here's one thing I'd like to add. And I hope that's where this content gets shared in this scenario. There's plenty of situations that happen on the daily where homeowners feel like they need a bigger air conditioner. And sometimes the HVAC person who's maybe making the sale for that job, you know, let's just say his livelihood depends on sales. I could totally understand that. And it's tough to tell a homeowner no when they have something in their mind that they know that they want, right?
Yeah.
Like I know my air conditioner is not big enough for my house. Like it's just a feeling. Well, the load calculation, you know, run your blower door, do a load calculation, and prove it. Right? Prove it to the homeowner. Hopefully this content reaches some of those situations and it doesn't just happen because that person's put under stress and trying to deliver what the homeowner desires, right?
There is
when I was in the game, I can't tell you how many homeowners have told me, Chris, he's, like, I think we need to go up to a 4-ton. And I'm like, huh? They're like, I just, this year was like a really hot year. And I just think a 4-ton would just do better. That conversation's happened like quite a few times.
All the time. And let me mention, those people that are saying that are the 500 square foot per ton people. And I've done load calculations where I know there's square footage per ton. So I moved them away from that. And those are the people that want to upsize because they want to go below it. That it blows my mind.
So I'm putting a comment up there because I'm trying to, right now we're just got a few more minutes. I'm just trying to debunk things. That way the content's out there, right? Because this is homeowner facing content.
Right.
And so if your air conditioner is running at peak load conditions, it should not shut off. It should continue to run.
Yep.
That is the idea of it. If it's shutting off at peak load conditions, then essentially it's oversized.
It should. So at peak load conditions, and this is what the load calculation calculates, a peak load condition. And that depends on the design criteria of your area, the orientation of the house, the color of the roof, all kinds of factors that have to be put into that load calculation. So remember, this is a calculation and it works like this. It's garbage in, garbage out. But the flip side is good stuff in, good stuff out. So if the better material or the better information that you put into the load calculation or whoever's running that load calculation, the better quality of information that you put in there, the better quality the information coming out is going to be.
Yep.
So they may have to gather a lot of information, right? To get an accurate load calculation, which is what you want because that sizes that equipment very well. And you're going to get the premium comfort because if
I got another one I want to address.
Yeah. So I let me finish this thought here.
Leave it up there.
If you're running, if the house is constantly gaining heat 100% of the time, then so we'll just say that 24,000 BTUs of heat and that 2-ton is running and removing 24,000 BTUs of heat constantly, the house is going to hold comfort level. That's what you should get. Now, if that design temperature for your area is say 95 degrees or 92 degrees, whatever it is, and you slide up a little bit over that, which does happen a few hours out of the year.
It's only when the sun's up.
The house may slide up with that a little bit. But after the outdoors cools down a few hours, it's not going to be immediate, but a few hours after the outdoor cool down, it should come back down in that set point and keep the house pretty close to set point there.
Right.
If everything is sized perfectly.
I think we need to have one more conversation before we go.
100%.
Right. And it's all about, and this is common across the builders that I've met and I know. Builders have it in their brain, and I think it's from quality marketing from the equipment manufacturers. I've heard equipment manufacturer salesmen push this, and I'm not saying they're all guilty. I've just heard some say it. And inverter-based equipment does not mean you can oversize. Right?
You should be able to give everybody a 5-ton, right?
Right. There's a limitation to it, and I'm going to try to remember the balance points. So when we design for equipment to go in a house, right, we can categorize 3 different tier levels of equipment. We have the standard equipment like Eric talked about that works like a light switch, comes on, goes off. We call that single stage, right? I think we can go up to 110%. Am I right? In the 110% match?
I think so, yeah.
110% match of the load.
110, yeah.
Then
So
there's two-stage.
Capacity of the equipment versus load.
Right. Then there's this second tier level of equipment, the 2-stage equipment. Imagine this is basically, let's go to the car analogy.
I equate that to like a multi, the 3-position light bulb on a lot of lamps, but except it's just positions. It's either brighter or dimmer.
Okay.
Right.
I'll take your analogy.
No, he's right. Like a 1970s three-way light, right?
Matt Milton's in here.
Low and high and off. 115.
Oh, it's 115 single stage. Sorry, Matt.
115 and 120.
Thought it was
120.
110.
There you go. Yeah.
120 for 2-speed. And then the variable speed, which is like the Cadillac models of air conditioner. This is where it's starting to get a trend out there where people are saying, oh man, you go to inverter, it'll throttle down.
Yeah.
No.
So
you can put 130%.
Right. So
match.
your low calc says 24,000 BTUs. Doesn't mean you could throw 50,000, 60,000 BTUs on the damn house. Okay.
Right.
Right. And what that is
We
two stage is two different capacities in the same unit. And the inverter stuff, just as an explainer here for people, is a variable speed unit. And it naturally, according to the algorithms, changes the capacity of the equipment as the indoor temperature changes.
Like a dimmer switch. You're gonna go
more like a dimmer switch on light bulb, to reuse that light bulb analogy.
I'm just stealing that off of you, Kaiser.
That's great.
So
It's easy for people to understand because that's something that we all deal with on a regular basis.
Because my wife hates the lights on full blast 100%.
There are limits to what that variable capacity equipment can do, and it still has to be selected right for the application. So,
right.
and that is the process of what's called manual S. So at minimum, if you have somebody doing a change out, they need to do a manual J followed by a manual S calculation, which is equipment selection.
Yeah. And I tell you what, this got really fun, man. So here's what we may have to go round 2 on this topic. So stay tuned. This may be a round 2 where we go into what could cause someone to think that their air conditioner's not big enough.
I love it. Ding, ding.
Yeah. Ding, ding. No, but for real, here's what I'm thinking for next week. I just, this thumbnail may not come out till Sunday morning.
So stay tuned. You got to pay attention.
Yeah, you got to be on your toes, man.
Jump in the grapevine.
I'm thinking another round of terminology and definitions. What do y'all think?
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I had fun with this one. This one was good, man. There's a lot of people out there.
I think it'd be a good follow-up. I'm thinking we should do building science terminology and definitions. That's where I'm at with it. That's where I'm at.
Throw it in the grapevine. Let me know what you guys want.
Maybe I'll get a thumbnail out before Sunday evening.
I like Cindy here, and that's right. If you want a bigger unit, we can always put a big hole in the wall to make up that capacity difference.
Yeah, or you could leave your oven on all day. Just leave it, crack it open. Leave that attic hatch open.
So, fun one. All right,
Thanks, guys. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Come on now.